we'll move on to the next speaker, but thanks
Thank you.
again, Kevin. Are the lights good for everyone? Better? Projected? All right. So we're bringing back the man of many titles, Frank Wuerthwein, to talk a little bit about NRP.
So I actually changed the title and the focus and the message of the talk. And so is it still you? It's still me. Because I realized when I asked myself, what do I really want to talk about? That it's not about NRP. It's really about when the experience that I've had by talking to smaller institutions all across the country, but mostly actually in California where I reside. And it ultimately is about how can we reduce the total cost of ownership of participating in the CC Star program. And so let me start by the objective. The objective, when everything is said and done, my favorite presentation of the objective is from the Minds We Need. And I'll just read out the first part. Connect every community college, every minority serving institution, and every college and university, including all urban, rural, and tribal institutions, to a world-class and secure research and education infrastructure, with particular attention to institutions that have been chronically underserved. And the first thing I want to point out here, it says research and education. So one of the lessons that I've learned by dealing with or getting to know these lots of these smaller institutions is that it's a lot about education. The educational mission is typically at the forefront of their mind, and the research mission comes with it as a secondary concern. And so, and the reason why a lot of these smaller institutions are coming to programs like the CC Star and working with us is that research requires computing infrastructure, education requires computing infrastructure, not just research. If you look around, I see a revolution at my own institution that more and more courses that we teach across a wide range of discipline just require computing infrastructure and data infrastructure to even be taught. It's part of the curriculum to have homework assignments that are on the computer. And so the problem statement that I see is that OSG requires the institution to operate a batch cluster and or a storage cluster in order to join the OSG. And that, from my experience talking to smaller institutions all across is a very high bar to jump. I don't know whether it's many, I don't have statistics, but if you look at the, go to the Department of Education website and look at the accredited institutions of higher learning, they give you a nice map of the US, and there's close to 4,000 accredited higher institutions of higher learning. They may not have the staff to do so, to operate a cluster or operate a storage cluster or compute cluster. And there's sort of three reasons. One, they can't afford it. Two, they can't recruit it because of the location where they're located. There's just no workforce that does this thing in their location. And three, that it just doesn't make any sense to sustain that kind of workforce at the institution, given the size of the institution. It's disproportionate to the size of the institution to have 4 FTEs doing all the stuff that you have to do that SDC does for UCSD for the campus infrastructure. That it just doesn't make any sense. And so I think a cardinal question to me is, can we reduce the total cost of ownership of compute and data infrastructure, and how do we do so? If we want to reach the thousands, that is a must do in my mind. And so I'm going to tell you about one for compute and one for data, how you can actually reduce the total cost of ownership. And a simple answer is you can outsource operations. If you can't afford operations, but you still want to own, well, you outsource operations. And for compute, the NRP allows you to outsource operations. The NSF funds the prototype NRP. And so what you see here is the is the stack, and there's two places where you can join into that stack and outsource operations to NRP staff. And you can either come in at the IPMI layer and have the NSF funded PNRP project operate your hardware all the way up from IPMI. That means that you outsource the operations of the operating system, the patching of the operating system, and all that jazz. If your security stance at your campus allows it, voila, knock yourself out, outsource it. If that makes your security folks too uncomfortable, there's a second place you can join in at the Kubernetes layer. In other words, PNRP operates a Kubernetes cluster that is non-local. It covers the entire world, and you can operate all of the things, including the operating system, and then join above the operating system into the NRP Kubernetes infrastructure, and voila, that works just as well. That still requires you to maintain the patching of the operating system, but it may be more palatable to your campus security folks. Then on top of this, there is the usual compute element that the OSG has as a requirement. And it's a different kind of compute element. It sits on Kubernetes. It's not your hosted CE type thing that you hear most being talked about. And so we don't normally talk about how that works in detail, but it does exist, and it's an option. And then you can, from the CE, join into the OS pool with your resources or into any other Condor pool. It doesn't matter. The structure is that you join a Condor pool at this layer. And so there is a significant amount, either one of these two, joining on either one of these two layers, there's a significant amount of total cost of ownership savings because you outsource operations to some extent. There's other things that you get for free in a way as you do this, because you join a community that has its own training, that has user training. Those you can avail yourself anyway to some extent. But if you are outsourcing operations, then you automatically are in the loop of when these events happen, There is a user support infrastructure that is something similar to Slack-based that your users can join. So there's all kinds of other cost of ownership reductions that you get for free, so to speak, as you do this. But invariably, it requires your campus cybersecurity folks to stretch their mind a little bit, to do something a little bit unusual. And so this is your ops effort may be as little as providing space, power, cooling, and networking, and deal with hardware failures. Those are the things that you always have to do yourself. The rest you can outsource.
Frank, I want to make a few comments here because this is an extremely powerful picture that sends several messages. One is that the power of this, if you want to call it multi-headed monster, that is NRP, Pelican, and PASS, how all these pieces are basically working together to provide different solutions depending on the specific needs and interests of the campuses that are the focus of this. And the other one is the point that you made about the networking, that one of the advantages of joining, whether it's NRP or the OS pool, or as you can see here, you can do both, is that the campus start thinking about being part of the national infrastructure. That means rethinking the network. And the DMZ that started at the beginning of the CC Star program was another approach to how do I become part of the national structure. So this is, this is the slide that people should take home from here.
Thank you. So now that works for compute. In principle, you could also do storage that way. And we agonized over this. I basically sat with the staff in my group that does this and agonized, are we willing to support storage CCSR grants in this way? And basically they told me no. And the reason is simple, we don't have the effort. Within the NRP team, there isn't enough effort to take on both the compute and the storage. And so move over to, I wanted to show you the map of this is the map of institutions that are currently integrated. You can look at that at leisure. So what about storage? And there is no equivalent, at least not that I know, that is actually funded by the NSF as a storage solution that will allow you to outsource your storage operations. However, there is a project that allows you to do it and have you pay them to do it for you. And that's actually not a bad deal in my mind. And the thing, and let me be clear, I get no funding from OSN. I am not part of OSN. I do not have no conflicts of interest that I know of, at least. And so the Open Storage Network, it provides everything starting from a shopping list, what to buy. They literally think of themselves as a device, as a storage appliance opportunity. And so I'm told, I asked by email what the current status is before putting the slide together. For a little less than 100K, you can buy a pod, which you just follow their shopping list, that provides 2 petabytes of S3 right now. So out of, if you wanted to take the 700K of Kevin's and solicitation, you have, and you set aside 100K for ops and to get it all together, that would be 6 times 2, that's 12 petabytes of S3 that you can buy for this, according to the information I was given. Then in addition, they require, if you want them to operate this from remote, it's a very similar kind of story. Everything gets operated from remote. You buy the appliance, you put it into the rack, you hook it power up and you hook networking up, and they take over and do everything else. You outsource operations for $10,000 a year. You can then join your OSN and pod to OSDF. We established with Pelican, we established an S3 backend to OSDF. So at this point, you can actually join OSN pods into OSDF, and voila, you can do the sharing via OSDF. Same story as before, and it is morally equivalent to the compute slide that I showed a moment ago. I just don't have the nice stack picture. And this here is the current map. I took that from their website of pods that exist. And if you want to know more, they have a PDF on their website that discusses in gore detail what exactly you're getting into when you do this. And it has all kinds of information, like what's the rack size and all kinds of details that I can't possibly remember. And so I encourage people who are considering outsourcing, and there is a hitch. If you don't use their shopping list, they are not willing to operate for you. Basically, they made the decision that they want, in order for them to be able to do this at that price, they need to have control over what you have bought, because otherwise it is too costly to integrate and operate. So there's that as so you have to, if you want to outsource storage, you have to think early and plan ahead. Summary and conclusion, you can submit a CSTAR proposal for compute or storage, even if you don't have the workforce to operate a batch or storage infrastructure. That's the message of my talk. So you don't have to be investing into labor first before you can become a CSTAR owner and win an award. You can outsource compute system operations to NRP, you can outsource storage system operation to OSN. Whether or not you want to run your batch and storage infrastructure depends on what infrastructure you already have in place. There's very, very, very good reasons that you want to do it yourself. There's in no way, shape, or form am I implying that you should outsource. But I want to make sure that the possibility is there and people know that the possibility is there to outsource operations. And whether or not you want to outsource and what you want to outsource depends on your institution. It depends on what you want to do with this when you win a CC Star Award. It depends on what else you have already on your campus and how this falls in your total campus infrastructure plan. And I leave it at that. Thank you very much.